Hi folks, I wanted to talk a bit about the wooden mitre plane. I've had a request from the Netherlands asking a few questions about it. For a start off, the English wooden mitre plane, like nearly all other wooden planes made in England, would have been beech. They use beech all the while. I'm talking about boxwood, because this man is requested I talk about boxwood, but they would be beech with boxwood mouth closure normally. Anyway, this is one I made some years ago and I've recently bought back. Some years ago I used every piece of boxwood I'd got big enough to make a mitre plane. However big the boxwood was, I'd make a mitre plane out of it. So I made 9 in a row, but they're all different sizes and proportions. This one is thin, obviously thin in that regard, because that would have been the biggest piece of boxwood out at the time for this particular plane. A plane of this dimensions, and there's no set rule for dimensions on an English wooden mitre plane, but one of something like that, I think it measured about 11 3/4 inch long, would normally be, what, a good ½ inch deeper than this. But like I say, I haven't got the depth on this one. Anyway, I'll try and answer some of the queries he sent me. So there's no set rules for dimensions of a wooden mitre plane. You can make them small, you can make them up to, the biggest one I've ever seen was 16 inches long, but I should think the average size would be about this, about 12 inches long. And he asks also, is the timber square or irregular sizes? Yeah, it's never square as far as I know. It would probably be a bit wider in the width than it would in the depth, normal. And there's no set angle for the wood closure. It can be, most of them I should say about like that. Yeah, a slight angle like that, probably 70 degrees, but there's no set rule. Some of them stick right out. Again, it's just preference, and some of them, most of them are back like that. It can be any width there. This one is about 3/4 of an inch. I've seen them as low as perhaps even 1/4 of an inch, but of course the wider they are, the more resistant to wear, and that's the whole idea of that piece of wood. So I would say about 3/4 of an inch. And of course they slope in the width, right? But the side pieces must be vertical, dead parallel. They have to slide up and down. They mustn't be tapered. But you have one side that'll be straight and the other side will be tapered. And the taper can be on either side, it doesn't really matter. The idea being of this wooden piece of timber is when the plane wears down, the mouth gets bigger here, backwards. You take the piece of wood out, knock it out, take a few shavings off the sloping side, put it back in, it then sticks out further, and you trim it off. The bottom of this face, at the bottom, it has to be in front of the mouth, and it tapers back to the mouth. I have got drawings on my website explaining that. I believe Sarah's shaking her head, saying I haven't. But that's it. That's the idea of it. So this face is in front of the mouth and it slopes back to the mouth all the time. So when you adjust it, take a shaving or two off the sloping side, you will then probably have to take a shaving or two, well, it'll stick out and you're playing it off, and close the mouth up again with that bevel back at the bottom. You want a fair bit of timber there, because that's a weak spot if you have it too thin. This is about 3/8, and in boxwood that's a lot of wood. It'll never break, as you can see. In beech you probably could do with a little bit more, but 3/8 would be alright. But don't skimp on that piece of timber. Make the whatever iron you've got, I suggest you make the plane to fit the iron. The irons are hard to come by. They're nibbed irons. People say snakes, it's incorrect. Should be nibbed, and you can buy them from Philly planes to fit whatever plane you're going to make. When you let the wedge in, you have to a minimum of 1/8 of an inch. In boxwood that's very strong. Brim beech probably a little over 1/8 of an inch, right? And this bit here is always on an English mitre plane, and it's always that shape. And make sure you leave enough wood there and there when you shape it, because again that's a weak spot. So don't take the ends of this chamfered bit too near the wedge and the mouth closure. Leave a good, well, 1/2 inch at minimum. Right, what else? Off we go again. Now the mouth on a mitre plane wants to be a minimum of 1/3 of the length of the plane. Right, you know, there's the mouth, not that bit there, there's the mouth, so that distance there is a minimum of 1/3 of the length. A bit more, preferably, than 1/3. Right? If I was making this plane again, now I've seen it, I would even move the mouth back about another 1/2 inch, because I've got plenty of room here to do that. Anyway, what else? I'm doing this. I'm looking at you, Sarah. This, he talks about what bed angles there should be. There's no set rule for an English mitre plane, but they average from roughly 20 degrees to, I would say, 27 at the most. I do know one plane that was 30, but that's a bit high in my opinion. You want to aim for about 20 degrees if you've got the amount of timber to do that. The lower the bed angle, the more efficient the plane will be. All mitre planes have to have a very tight mouth and a low bed angle. And the bevel on a mitre plane is always up on the iron. This gentleman asks whether it's up or down. On any mitre plane made in Britain, the bevel is up, always. He also says he would like to use it as a shooting plane when he's made this plane. Well, a shooting plane is really a much bigger plane, and it is a completely different construction. It's like a bench plane, a panel plane, or what's the triplane. It has a higher bed angle, so that they're not the same planes. You can, of course, use these as a shooting plane. They'd be more efficient, actually. But anyway, that's the difference. And of course, the shooting plane would have the bevel down. Mitre plane up. Right. Anything else he's asked there? He also asked, is there any pitfalls? I can't think of any pitfalls, other than if you do make one out of boxwood, to cut these cuts to hold the wedge and the iron. Boxwood doesn't work like any other timber, and especially like beech. If you cut those lines out and chisel it out in beech, there'd be no problem. In boxwood, you won't be able to chisel it out. You'd have to come up with some form of clearing it. The wood I used a blunt chisel technique, which I have done a video somewhere. Out of all the 9 planes I made in boxwood, I could not chisel that waste out from either end. It's all interlocked. I had to come up with a piece of steel, actually. I blunted it and used it as like a float or a blunt chisel. That's how I overcome that problem. So I think that just about covers it all.